She said, "You'll have to accept that my ex and I go on a trip together every year. If you don't like it, then maybe we shouldn't get married." I just smiled. "Have a great trip." "You too." Then I called her best friend, the one who's had a crush on me for a long time. When she came back from her trip, I'll never forget the look on her face when she walked into the house and saw... "Before we talk about marriage," Luna said, "there's one thing you have to accept." I looked at her. "What is it?" She replied without hesitation. "Every year I go on a trip with my ex. It's our tradition. I'll keep doing it. If you can't accept that, maybe we shouldn't get married." For a moment I thought I misheard her. "You mean just the two of you?" I asked. "Yes, we've done it for years. It doesn't mean anything romantic anymore. It's just something we do." I nodded slowly. "And you expect me to be fine with that?" She smiled slightly, like someone explaining something obvious. "If you love me, you'll trust me. That's what love is about, right?" Her voice was calm, casual, like talking about weekend plans. I stared at her for a few seconds, trying to process what I'd just heard. "If that's how you see it," I said quietly, "have a good trip." Her smile froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means exactly what I said," I answered. "Have a good trip." Silence stretched between us. She was waiting for me to argue, to beg, to compromise. I didn't. I just stood up, picked up the plates, and started washing the dishes. That was the moment I knew something had already ended, even before she packed her bags. I met Luna 3 years ago through a mutual friend at a small exhibition downtown. She was a freelance photographer, taking pictures for local magazines and cafes. I was teaching English at a public high school, not far from where she lived. Luna was confident and easy to like. Within a year, we moved in together. The apartment was under my name because I had a stable income. I paid the rent and most of the bills. Luna handled groceries, cleaning, and sometimes helped with small home projects. She called it balance, and I agreed. Not because I believed it was equal, but because I didn't care much about the math. I liked coming home to her laughter and coffee on the table. Our first year living together was fine. We had small arguments, mostly about her schedule. She traveled often for shoots, sometimes staying out late to edit photos with her team. I didn't question her. I believed in trust. Then came the small changes, unanswered texts, late nights, new perfume. Still I stayed. People make mistakes, I told myself. Relationships take patience. When Luna mentioned her annual trip with her ex for the first time, it was during a casual conversation months earlier. She said it with a laugh, that it was something they'd done for years, even after breaking up. I thought it was a joke, the kind of thing people say to test how far they can push. It wasn't. By the time she brought it up again at dinner, this time as a condition for marriage, I realized it wasn't a test. It was a rule. Her rule. After that evening, our apartment felt different. She moved around as if nothing had happened, humming while folding laundry, leaving notes on the fridge asking what I wanted for breakfast. But something invisible had already cracked between us. I stopped replying to her jokes, stopped asking where she was going. 2 days before her trip, she told me she'd be gone for a week. She packed carefully, the way she always did, rolling clothes into neat cylinders, checking her camera lenses and humming quietly. She asked if I needed anything from the city she'd be visiting. I said no. When she left, the place went silent. I just stood there for a while. Then I took out my phone and called Sarah, my closest friend, someone I'd known since college. She worked at a small printing shop nearby and was the type of person who helped without asking too many questions. "Hey," I said, "can you come over tomorrow? I need help with something." She asked what it was about. "Just moving some things," I said. I didn't explain further. She didn't press. At that point, I already knew what I was going to do. Sarah came over the next morning wearing her usual hoodie and carrying a pack of takeout coffee. "So," she said, handing me one, "you moving somewhere?" "Not exactly," I said. "I just need help packing." She frowned, but didn't ask who or what we were packing. That was one of the things I liked about Sarah. She didn't dig unless you wanted her to. We started packing her things. "You sure she's okay with this?" Sarah asked. "She will be," I said. She frowned but helped anyway. We worked in silence for a while. Luna's clothes smelled faintly of her perfume, sharp, floral, familiar. I folded them neatly, one after another, and taped the boxes shut. Sarah moved on to the vanity table, collecting makeup, hairbrushes, bottles of skincare. She wrapped each one carefully, assuming Luna had asked me to help. Around noon, we stopped to eat sandwiches. She finally asked, "So, does she know you're doing this?" "No," I said. Her chewing stopped. "You're kidding," I shook my head. "She'll find out when she gets back." Sarah stared at me for a moment, then let out a quiet whistle. "Damn, you're really done, huh?" "I think so." After lunch, we finished the living room. Luna's framed photos, souvenirs from her trips, all of it went into boxes. I didn't touch the shelf with my books or her cameras. Those were work tools, not memories. When we were done, I looked around. The place felt empty, but lighter, the kind of quiet that follows a storm. Sarah leaned against the doorframe. "What are you going to tell her?" "I already did," I said. "I told her to have a good trip." She gave a small, humorless laugh. "Right. You always keep it simple." I wrote a short note and left it on the kitchen counter. "Your things are packed. Take them whenever you want." I hope the trip was worth it. Sarah didn't say anything. She just picked up her bag and said, "You'll call me if it gets messy, right?" "I will." She left. Luna came back after only 4 days. It was raining when she unlocked the door. I was in the kitchen washing dishes. I heard her footsteps stop abruptly. "What the hell is this?" she said. I turned off the tap and faced her. Her luggage was still by the door. Her eyes darted from the empty shelves to the boxes lined neatly near the wall. "Your stuff," I said. "I packed it up for you." "Why?" Her voice was sharp. I kept my voice calm. "Because you said this might not work," she frowned. "I said that if you couldn't accept it, and I couldn't," I cut in. "So what?" "I told you about it. I was honest. You said you were fine with it." I said, "Have a good trip." "That's not the same thing." She threw her bag down. "You're unbelievable. You act like you're so calm, so reasonable, but this—" She gestured wildly around the room. "This is just petty." "Maybe," I said. "But it's done." Luna stepped closer, her tone dropping. "You think you can just throw me out? After everything?" I didn't answer. "This is my home too," she shouted. "You never paid the rent," I said, not unkindly. "It was never yours, Luna. You just stayed here." For a moment she didn't speak. Then she laughed, short, bitter. "You're pathetic." "You couldn't handle a simple tradition." "You're insecure." "Maybe," I said again. Her voice cracked. "You'll regret this." I shook my head. "No, I already regretted staying." She glared at me for a long second, then began tearing the note on the counter into small pieces. After that, she grabbed one of the boxes, realized it was too heavy, and left it there. Luna stormed out without closing the door. Sarah came by that evening after I texted her. The boxes were still there. One night I caught myself waiting for her messages the way I used to wait for Luna's. That's when I knew something had changed. "She found out," I said. "I guessed." She glanced around. "How bad?" "Not bad. Just loud." Sarah nodded, then sat on the couch. "You okay?" "Yeah, just tired." She looked at me for a moment, then said softly, "You finally did it, huh?" "Did what?" "Stopped making excuses for her." I didn't reply. I just sat there, staring at the empty space where Luna's plants used to be. The apartment smelled different now, cleaner, colder. The silence was loud, but it felt like relief. It wasn't joy or anger or sadness, just a quiet sense that something finally made sense again. Luna didn't come back the next day or the day after. Eventually, someone came to pick up her boxes while I was at work. She didn't leave a message. I didn't send one. After that, the apartment stayed empty, but peaceful, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like waiting for anyone. 6 months passed. By then, she was just someone I used to know. Sarah and I kept in touch as usual. She'd stop by after work, sometimes bringing dinner, sometimes just to talk. There was nothing romantic, just an easy kind of company that didn't require pretending. One afternoon, while I was grading essays at school, I got a message from a friend who still worked with Luna on photography projects. "You heard about Luna's new guy?" I typed back, "No. She's dating some guy named David. Owns a small studio, pretty successful. She looks happy, actually," I replied. Good for her, and went back to my papers. But the stories kept finding me anyway. Then, almost a year after our breakup, Sarah came over on a Saturday night. We were cooking noodles in the kitchen when she said, "You're going to love this." "Probably not," I said. She laughed. "Fine, maybe you'll appreciate it. You know Luna's still doing her annual trip thing?" I stopped stirring. With the new guy? Apparently she tried, Sarah grinned. Told him about it. Said it's her tradition, that he has to trust her, blah blah. Guess what happened? What? He didn't argue. He just nodded, said okay. Then a few days later he found the ex, talked to him in person. Whatever he said must have hit hard, because that ex blocked Luna on everything and moved out of the city. I raised an eyebrow. Seriously? Seriously. The trip never happened. She went offline for a while after that. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't angry or amused. Mostly I just felt distant, like hearing about a story that used to involve me, now being told to someone else. Sarah watched me. You're thinking something, I shrugged. Just that some lessons arrive the hard way, she nodded. Yeah, and sometimes they show up late. We ate in silence after that. The noodles were overcooked, and the sauce was too salty, but it didn't matter. Later that night, after Sarah left, I sat by the window with a cup of tea. I thought about Luna. Not the fights or the packing or the silence, but the idea of her. How she always wanted to keep one door open while walking through another. I understood now that some people call it freedom when they really mean control. They test love by stretching it until it breaks, and then act surprised when it doesn't hold. I didn't wish her ill. I just hoped she'd finally learned the difference. Sarah and I stayed close. She was still the person I called when the sink leaked, when I burned dinner, when I needed to talk about anything and nothing. Eventually, she stopped knocking before coming over. She'd let herself in, bring groceries, complain about her boss, and fill the apartment with noise that didn't demand attention. It wasn't sudden, but at some point, the quiet between us changed. We started cooking together more often, staying up later. I found myself looking forward to her messages, her sarcasm, the way she hummed while drying dishes. There was no confession, no official shift. It was more like waking up one morning and realizing that something gentle had been growing there all along. One evening, while we were having dinner, Sarah said, "You know, this is the longest you've ever kept someone's toothbrush in your bathroom." I laughed. "That's your metric for commitment." "It's practical," she said. "You can't fake shelf space." I smiled, but I didn't argue. She was right. She had a drawer now, a toothbrush, a place on the couch that was unmistakably hers. We didn't talk about labels. Neither of us needed to. Whatever this was, it was steady, and that steadiness was worth more than anything I'd called love before. Weeks later, out of nowhere, a message popped up. "I'm sorry. I hope you're doing well." There was no name, but I didn't need one. I read it once, then set the phone face down on the table. Sarah noticed. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just old mail." She didn't ask further. She never did. That was one of the things I loved about her, the space she gave without needing an explanation. Later that week, I cleaned out the last of Luna's old boxes from the storage closet. They'd been there for more than a year, unopened. I carried them downstairs, left them by the dumpster, and didn't look back. When I came back up, Sarah was in the kitchen making tea. "Throwing things away?" she asked. "Just old stuff," I said. She handed me a cup. "Good. Makes room for new things." We stood by the window, watching the lights from the street. The city noise drifted up. Cars, laughter, the occasional siren, all of it blending into a kind of steady hum. I thought about how different life felt now. I looked at Sarah. She caught me staring. "What?" she said. "Nothing," I said. "Just thinking I got lucky." She rolled her eyes but smiled. "You did." I laughed quietly, and for a long time neither of us said anything else. I used to think love had to hurt. Now I know it should feel simple, like breathing. That night, as we turned off the lights, I realized I hadn't thought about Luna for months. Not in anger, not in regret, just not at all. And that was how I knew I'd finally let go.